about mental problems and the internet. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I'm still over at my mom's house, so I'm going to do another improvisational video because reasons. Hopefully you won't hear her in the background this time. Alright, so I made 2 videos about antisocial personality disorder, and I got a few comments from people being like, oh, I thought I was going to get something scientific, but I just hear personal stories, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a reason that I feel compelled to talk about psychological disorders and psychiatric disorders to a certain degree. No, I'm not a professional, but yes, I have studied this stuff a fair amount, like a massive amount more than the average person, due to people that I know being afflicted with such things, is what I'm going to say, like, I've had very specific personal reasons to actually study this stuff. I've studied it in college, and I have done a lot of reading, largely on the internet, but I also watch other stuff. Aiden Paladin is good when she talks about such things. For example, she's a lot better than I am if you really want to get, into the nitty-gritty. But, there's a lot of things that are unknown, and that's the nature of non-hard science, I would say. The thing about social sciences, and when I say social sciences, I do not mean sociology or, like, gender studies or something. I mean actual hard social science where they do clinical trials and try to figure things out. Psychological studies trying to figure out how people act in a controlled manner and see if people are more likely to do certain things or less likely to do certain things. One of the things about it is that it really does take a very long time to actually come up with something concrete. It's not like you just sort of you have to come up with a hypothesis, and then you have to run the trial, and if it's going to be a credible trial, it's probably going to take some number of years. So when you keep that in mind, there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now in terms of the social sciences that is probably advancing really, really quickly. And, it'll be a very interesting field to study. I doubt there's a lot of money in it, but if you wanted a field to really get into in university that is actually probably worthwhile, I would definitely say studying social sciences as they relate to social media and the internet would be a very fascinating thing. It would be very, very interesting because I think that a lot of the psychology, the social psychology based around things like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, comment sections, you name it, all of that stuff will have a drastic effect on social psychology that has very likely not really been studied in any solid, conclusive capacity. So when I talk about this stuff, one of the reasons that I feel compelled to talk about it is that I do have a rudimentary understanding of it, but I like to think that hopefully, maybe if I have some ideas, maybe there will be some people who want to follow through and study certain things. Maybe I could help them form some hypotheses for them to study some things and come up with actual theories about how people behave. So one of those things that I've been thinking about, and maybe somebody like Aiden Paladin could tell me more about this, is that, it seems like the internet is a lot more likely to bring out people's potential personality disorders and even psychiatric disorders like bipolar or schizophrenia. The social media could easily trigger these things for several different reasons. For one, like, let's say somebody, there's rage addiction and there's also bipolar. People get a dopamine high for having people agree with them or winning an argument or feeling like they won an argument. And, if they get 5 or 6 people all ganging up on someone, tweeting at somebody, they get a high from that. Like, they literally do. And there's certain people that will gravitate towards each other seemingly because they know that they'll always agree with each other and they'll always attack whoever else they're attacking. And I've seen this for ages. I used to see this on bulletin boards. There were just these groups of people it was like a little gang of people that would always attack somebody that one of them was mad at unconditionally, without any sort of necessary logic or remorse or anything or shame. Like, it was so obvious that these people were publicly biased and ganging up on somebody, and they would always do it. And I think that everybody else hated them, but they thought in their twisted little heads, well, there's 6 of us. We're in the majority because there's only one guy that we're ganging up on. And it's like, whoa, you just have issues. You have no idea that there are hundreds of people who are reading this and they're all thinking that you're idiots. So, that type of thing, when that type of thing goes on, it fires a dopamine rush into these people's heads, and it can, I believe it can, probably lead to a rage addiction. Rage addiction is an actual thing. People get a dopamine rush from getting angry. They get adrenaline and endorphins or whatever. And so there's that. And then people who become addicted to rage can also, it can trigger things like bipolar disorder, which is an actual chemical imbalance where people it's not simply that they're angry, but it's the chemicals in their body are used to getting fired up, and they get really, really fired up, and then they get depressed eventually, and it usually cycles over the course of a number of months, but it can rapid cycle over the course of weeks or even just a few days, depending upon who they are. So there's that, and I also think, and this is what I think that a lot of work could be done around it, and it could be more interesting. I also think that the internet and social media could bring out potential personality disorders, and maybe people who don't even really have these personality disorders might start strongly exhibiting traits of them. So, okay, you take a cluster B personality disorder like borderline, narcissist, histrionic, and antisocial are the cluster B personality disorders. There might be another few obscure ones, but those are the main ones. These are personal problems where people, they all tend to be based around people being very, very self-centered, very, very self-serving, not really being able to fully understand other people, but in various different ways, right? I think that those people there's going to be a lot of people that have small traits of being like that. Like, it's a sliding scale. Nobody is like completely this way, or not at all this way, obviously. Granted, a full-blown psychopath maybe would be about like the farthest that you could have in terms of a cluster B personality disorder. But everybody is, selfish at times. Well, you take people that have this trait, you get them on social media, and there's a lot of them. Then they're going to, because of the fact that social media is a mutual approval machine, you surround yourself with like-minded people. So there's people who are drama channels, and all they do is make response videos, right? And they do response videos, they pick apart people's arguments, and it gets to the point where that's all they do and that's all they think about. And then they get surrounded by an audience of people who like that. And their audience members likes it because they think in the same way. And so that person starts believing that everybody is like that. They get in this mindset of believing that everybody sits around all day listening to other people say things independently, and their job is to respond. And if they can effectively respond and effectively pick apart their arguments, then they've won. When a normal person would say, yeah, but like, where's your videos where you put forth ideas? What about that? And this so this is just a example of a certain type of people, because there's a lot of those type of people on YouTube. There's a lot of people who are like that, and that can bring out a certain type of behavior which might mimic one of these personality disorders, and it might encourage a full-blown personality disorder in a young person. Like, it's not really, I don't think it's known why exactly people develop these personality disorders, but if somebody is latently that way, I imagine, starting a YouTube channel and getting into that type of arguing and that type of crowd could make it really hard for somebody to break that pattern of behavior. And so there might be some people that are like this temporarily, but they're exhibiting full-blown, antisocial, borderline, blah, blah, blah type traits. And it's really just because of their environment and their habits on social media and the people that surround them. And so, it's really easy to sit around armchair psychologizing, being an armchair psychologist towards individuals. It's really, really easy and tempting to do that. It's very interesting. And sometimes there are people that seemingly want to convince you that they are this way. Like they actively want you to believe that they have no morals, and that they really don't care about who they're criticizing, and they don't care about anybody that would criticize them. And you catch them being like ridiculously hypocritical. Like they're mad about somebody doxing somebody, and then they end up first they're mad about somebody revealing private information, and then that same person ends up revealing the private information of everybody who criticizes them. That happens all the time. How many people have been critical of doxers who end up doxing in some capacity or another? That happens all the time. All the time. And you look at that, and it's easy to draw conclusions like this is somebody who has no morals. This is somebody who has a personality disorder. Because it really does look that way. And often, in order for their arguments to make sense, they sound like they're trying to prove that they are that way. But ultimately, things can be deceiving. People aren't what they project to the internet. Like they do know that people are watching on the internet, and it doesn't mean that they are that way. So it is really easy to psychologize these people, but we ultimately don't know. And I think that would be really interesting to study the varying degrees of personality disorders. Like, can somebody have a personality disorder in real life, hide it on the internet, and vice versa? Can somebody not have a personality disorder in real life, but have a personality disorder on the internet? I think that would be a really interesting question for some sort of graduate dissertation. All right, I gotta go because I hear people in the background. Bye.